Story 1. Am I the a-hole for blowing up on my son's girlfriend? My husband thinks I'm right, but my niece helped me make this post here to see what other people think. I, 52 female, have 3 sons ranging from 13 to 20. My oldest son, 20 male, has a girlfriend, 19 female, that hangs around our house a lot. It's a really small house and doesn't have a lot of space. She's a nice girl, but gets on my nerves sometimes because she's always over. I really don't think she's right for my son either. Our tap water has a weird aftertaste, so I order gallon water bottles and use them to refill a big glass bowl with a tap. It is not cheap to get water and other groceries delivered, so I tell my son's husband and the girlfriend to be courteous of other people who live here and not use up the water, as it runs out fast in our big household. Yesterday, I caught her filling up her big metal water bottle with the jug water, and I calmly told her that other people live here too, and she shouldn't hog the water all to herself. She was rather short with me and said something along the lines of, actually, this water bottle is big enough to hold all the water someone should be drinking in a day. I'm not hogging water, I'm just trying to stay hydrated. I found her tone to be disrespectful and ordered her to leave. She scoffed and went back to my son's room. That's when I got frustrated. I opened their door and told her she had to leave. My son got really angry with me and told me that my girlfriend didn't do anything wrong and why is it a crime for her to drink water? I explained that I order this water for our family to use, not leeches who hang around all day rent-free. My son's girlfriend got a little teary-eyed and left the room and out the front door without saying anything. My son told me I was a major a-hole and should have just minded my business. I think she's just wasteful and a brat. Am I the a-hole? Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm sorry, but if this is your son's girlfriend, someone important in her life, then she's kind of family too. And it seems like you've got a grudge against her. Like, you've already said, I don't like her. She's not good enough for my son. So already you come across as just, having an axe to grind with her. And I don't know. I get that water's not the cheapest. It really sounds like you should maybe invest in a better system, though that does cost money, and I get that. I do. Yeah, I think there are better ways that both sides could have handled that situation. And, kicking her out and saying that she's a leech who hangs around rent-free, all this stuff. I don't know, you're just, I don't know the whole situation. I don't know everything about her, but all that you've told me about her is you saw her filling up some water and thought that she maybe sounded snarky. I don't know, but it seems like you're pretty dead set against her no matter what. So maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But the way it reads, at least to me, from the information I have, I'd say you're at least a little bit the a-hole. Story 2. I don't think my oldest daughter is mine, and it's killing me. I already know that this is a terrible thing to think about, but it's been on and off in my mind for the past year, so I guess I'll give context to it all. This is a long one, just to warn y'all. Me, 32 male, and my ex-wife, 32 female, were together for 10 years before I ended the marriage due to verbal and emotional abuse. During those years, we had 2 children, both girls that I love with all my heart. Elle, 10 female, is our oldest that we had towards the beginning of our marriage, while R, 8 female, was midway through. I have absolutely no doubts in my mind that R is mine. She is nearly a carbon copy of me in every way, olive skin, curly jet black hair, etc. Elle, however, is a bit of a different story. She's a lot like her mother and shares a lot of her features except for 2 things: general face structure and blonde hair. Now, for some backstory on why that's a red flag for me, is because when we went to community college together, she had a friend, 31 male, she would always hang out with him, almost as much as me and her would hang out. He has blonde hair and their noses eerily line up. Now, my ex and her friend met after our first year of marriage. We got married really young, which was a stupid decision, but besides the fact. Perhaps this is just me being jealous, but they were nearly inseparable. Even after we left college, he would drive out great lengths to come see us, but usually when I was at work. About a little less than 3 years into our marriage, we were set to leave for another state for me to finish my degree. We were all set to leave, and then she got pregnant, somewhat of a surprise to me, but I was too excited about being a father to care. Eventually, her friend got married as well, and he stopped coming over. With one exception, he would always make it a point to come to Elle's birthday. Now, this friend already has a kid of his own, 1.5 years older than Elle, and would bring him to the party. When I tell you that these two looked nearly identical, that doesn't even begin to describe it. Eventually, these two became the same body build, hair color, and face and nose shape. Everyone would mistake them as siblings. That's when these thoughts first got into my head. A few years later, we eventually had R, and I wanted to try to move again so I could finally finish my degree. Also at this time, my ex's friend had also recently got married to his new girlfriend, while my ex hated always saying he didn't seem to be a right fit for him. After great resistance from her, we finally moved to another state. Things quickly unraveled in our relationship, and we divorced. Not how I imagined things going, but that is life. They moved back to her family, and coincidentally, her friend immediately divorced when they returned. Then, soon after that, the both of them started dating and then married. I'm happy for them, I really am, but when I went to visit them for the summer, Elle asked me if she could take her stepdad's last name, which really hurt, but if it was what she truly wanted, I wasn't going to deny her that. R wanted to keep her last name as it makes her feel closer to me. Then, the thing that really set me off. For some reason, we were all joking about no more kids, even though Elle wants another sibling, and she was so sad she would never get one. Me and my current significant other have been thinking of having a kid, so I told her as much. She wasn't really amused, saying that she meant for her mom and her stepdad, because a baby from me wouldn't really be their sibling like her mom and her stepdad's. Her mom quickly interjected, saying that would be the case for them too, as they would only be half-siblings. It felt very forced, and now that I'm back home, it's all I can think about. I haven't really talked with my eldest for the past week and a half because of it. I don't want to be thinking this. I don't want to believe my ex would have done that. She did a lot of things during our marriage, but I would never in a million years think of her as a cheater, but now it's all I can think about. I couldn't keep this one to myself. I need to know if I sound crazy or not. So, it's entirely possible that biologically she isn't yours, but this is where my brain always says, like, she's 10 years old. You've been her father for 10 years, and that makes you her dad. She is your kid. You have, invested that time, that connection, all of that kind of stuff, and blood doesn't matter. But at the same time, it also kind of seems like if she isn't, it almost seems like her mom and stepdad let her in on that little secret. Maybe? Like, I can see where it kind of sounds like that from at least how it's being described. And then that makes it feel like, does she consider you a father, or has she written you off or something? I don't know. It's weird. The most I can just say though is, you know what? Just treat her like your daughter, because she is. You raised her. You've imparted, a part of yourself onto her just by being there for her, being her dad. And, whether or not there's blood there or not, I don't know. Unless she insists on it or something more comes up, I would personally just leave it and just know in my heart that no, that is your daughter. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for being furious with my friend for leaving me alone and drunk? This is not the first time she, 35, has done this. She lives very close to where we usually go out, but never offers for me to sleep over afterwards. I, 37, have to make my own way home via transport, which takes over 1 hour and leaves me in a precarious situation. I get quite drunk when I go out, and I like to have fun. It hurts that we've known each other for over 1 year, we're not that close, but close enough, and she still doesn't try to look after me or save me the journey. I spoke to her about it recently, and she says she gets up and does work early, and she doesn't want someone in her bed disrupting her usual routines, as she's not sure what time I'd wake up. I explained I don't mind this, but I'm not a morning person, so I would try to leave early. She still won't invite me to stay at her house, and would instead rather take transport back to my place when drunk in the middle of the night. Am I the a-hole for being furious with her and considering ending this friendship over the fact that she is being selfish and has no regard for my safety? Kinda. I think maybe kind of. I don't know. So she's your friend. You've known her for about a year, which that is not super close. And I could see a person going either way of having someone stay over at their place, especially when they're getting really drunk, as you say. You get quite drunk. Maybe you're not that pleasant when you're quite drunk. Maybe they don't want to deal with that. Their safety and stuff isn't your safety is not their problem. You need to control how much you're drinking and make sure that you can get home safely. And to put it on that person and be like, if they just let me stay over, I don't know. Who knows anything about their place? Maybe they're private. Maybe they're uncomfortable for some reason they haven't let you know. Maybe any number of things that isn't really necessarily yours to judge. I don't know. I think getting furious and considering ending the friendship over it, that just, I don't know. It kind of says a lot to me about you, maybe. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I'm not getting the whole picture. I don't know. But To me, no, this person doesn't owe you staying at their place when you go out and drink together and you get quite drunk. That part's just sticking with me. I feel like maybe they just don't want to deal with quite drunk you, and maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know, but yeah. Story 4. My entitled relatives tried to force me to marry a man I had never met before. When I was 22, my extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc., began asking me why I wasn't married yet. I spent my childhood and early 20s in a fairly conservative North Indian state, and people in those areas tend to be deeply misogynistic, and the only way a woman has any value in their eyes is if she's attached to a man. Her own accomplishments, talents, etc. are of no consequence. So it wasn't all that surprising when I began getting these ridiculous questions about marriage while I was still in college. I had recently lost a lot of weight, and for the first time I actually looked good in jeans. My weight loss seemed to cause their queries to reach whole new levels of idiocy. You see, they all assumed that the only reason I had lost weight was so I could land a husband. Surely I hadn't done it for the sake of my own health and well-being, or because I wanted to look good for myself. That would be preposterous! My aunt was friends with a matchmaker. Matchmakers in India are these not great middle-aged women who have nothing better to do than to go around carrying photographs and info about eligible bachelors and bachelorettes and share them with the families of young men and women who are looking to marry them off. My aunt's friend was no different. She showed my aunt a picture of some guy in his late 20s who also had a great job and was from a respectable family. Let's call this guy Ajay. My aunt shared the picture and the info with my grandmother. Between the two of them, they decided that Ajay, whom I had never met before, would be the perfect match for me. Keep in mind that neither I nor my dad had any inkling of what was going on. One afternoon, I think it was Sunday, my aunt came over when I wasn't home. She told my dad to get his daughter dressed up and pretty, because she had promised me to a guy and his parents were coming over to see me that very evening. The tone in which she spoke made it sound like she had done me and my dad a big favor. My dad was shocked and asked what the hell she was talking about. She told him she had taken it upon herself to find a groom for me without my knowledge or consent, and taken some of the burden off his shoulders, and that their mother, my grandmother, had approved of the match. My dad told her he would have to speak to me first, and whether the guy's parents can come over or not depends on what I have to say about this. The little C actually tried to convince my dad that my consent wasn't necessary and that as elders they had every right to make this decision for me, but my dad wasn't having it. When I came home a few hours later, my aunt greeted me with a hug. This was enough to send red flags flying everywhere. I asked her what was going on, and she gleefully told me that what she had done and how her proposition had my grandmother's blessing. I told her to shove it up her butt and that I was in no mood to have an arranged marriage. Not then, not ever. She looked shocked and asked how I could say such a thing after all the trouble she's been through in order to find such a wonderful young man for me. I decided to get dirty. I told her if the wonderful young man is making her so wet, why doesn't she go marry him? My dad heard this and told me to watch my language. I told him I would if this bee knew her place and knew not to poke her nose where it doesn't belong. My grandmother had heard the commotion from her room and called out to my dad. She began telling him about how she had seen the guy's picture and the matchmaker had told them all about his family and how a match like this may not come along again. My dad told her that he would never force his daughter to marry if she doesn't want to. My stepmom said the same. I merely told her she was insane and belongs in a lunatic asylum. This, of course, caused both Grand Monster and Crazy Aunt to fake cry and go on about how my dad doesn't trust them to make the right decision for his daughter, and that they were family, and family has the right to make decisions for each other. What the actual FB? I wasn't going to budge, however, and told them I wasn't going to meet the guy or his parents and aunt. Better cancel the meeting if she knows what's good for her. Aunt left our house grumbling. But the drama was far from over. My Grand Monster, in order to emotionally blackmail my dad into agreeing to the match with or without my consent, stopped eating. Anytime food was brought to her, she would break into crocodile tears and whine about how my dad was dishonoring her wishes. As she was diabetic, her health began to deteriorate. My dad was scared. One evening, he and my stepmom sat me down and asked if I would consider the proposal and just have a meeting with Ajay's family. I was still adamant and said no. My mom came over again and said she had great news, as Ajay's parents were still interested in meeting me and they would allow me to study and have a career after I married their son. I asked her what part of the word no did she not understand the last time we spoke, and who the F do Ajay's parents think they are to allow me to do anything. Aunt once again flew into an impotent rage and asked how I could be so selfish. How could I disobey my family like this, and some other BS about how marriage is a union between families and not just individuals, and how in her day, girls were married off as soon as they reached adulthood, whether they liked it or not. I let her go on for some time, as her little hissy fit was quite amusing to me. After she exhausted herself, I told her that if she, Grand Monster, or even my parents even try to force me into this marriage, I was going to cut my wrist. And if I survived, the cops would know that I did it because I was being forced to marry against my will, and all involved would be in a world of trouble. Even if I died, I would leave behind enough evidence in the form of emails to all my friends and college professors detailing how I was being mentally tortured so I could be forced into this marriage. Both outcomes would result in all of them in deep legal crap. I even showed them the email I had already written. All I had to do was send it. And if any of them even think of locking me up and taking away my phone, laptop, etc., they should remember that my vocal cords still work, and I would gather the entire neighborhood with my screams, and cops would surely be called. As I spoke, my aunt's eyes kept getting wider and wider. She wasn't shocked, but she knew me well enough to know that I was very capable of doing all of this. She left quietly. Grand Monster must have heard every word because her hunger strike came to an end. My aunt never tried to look for a match for me again. Later, my dad told me that he was only asking me to think about the match and that he would never force me to do something I didn't want to do. I told him I knew that and assured him that my threats were only meant to scare my aunt, and they worked. I do understand that other cultures and the idea of, arranged marriages and stuff is something that still happens to this day, and I don't agree with it. I don't think it's right, and I don't believe in, cultural relativism winning out and making that morally okay, and so huge props to this poster for taking a stand for her rights to autonomy and not being forced into a relationship like that. You are not property. You are not something that can just be, traded off to join families or something like that. You are your own person who's allowed to make your own choices. If you want to be in an arranged marriage for some reason and you're truly happy with that, that's your right. But if you don't want to and they're still trying to force this on you and that grandmother is trying to hunger strike, let them, and do what you need to protect yourself. And you did. And it might seem extreme to some folks, but honestly, I'm happy this person did it. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for misleading my cousin and destroying his marriage? Throwaway for anonymity. There's some really weird drama in my family, and I feel like I'm going insane. So, here's the background. My family is a little unusual. There are 3 adults and 2 children. The adults are me, my wife, and another woman best described as my wife's platonic life partner and also my very dear friend. I'll call my partner Sally. Sally has lived with us for 20 years. The kids call her Ma. We live in a 4-bedroom house, and Sally and the kids each have their own bedrooms. Sally is aromantic and asexual. She and my wife love each other very much, but platonically. Sally is like a sister to me. I cannot overstate how incredibly platonic her relationships with both of us have always been. We're all very happy together. I've been super glad we have her since we had the kids. Parenting is so much easier when you have a numbers advantage. My cousin Dave has been married to his wife Mary for something like 15 years. They have 2 kids. Dave talked Mary into opening the relationship about a year ago, and now they're getting divorced because he's struggling to find anyone willing to date him. Mary isn't, and he's incredibly crabby about it and is destroying their relationship. And by I mean he's. He's jealous and resentful and making that her problem. And also, now mine, because he says it's my fault. According to him, he thought it would totally work great because my family makes polygamy and open relationships look easy. Which, what? Setting aside that Sally's relationship with both my wife and me are platonic, there's no open relationship in our household. Sally and I each get a weekly date night with my wife. I take the kids on her night, she takes them on mine. I did say parenting is easier with the numbers advantage. I think my wife and I have significantly more quality time together than we would if it was just the 2 of us. When the kids can't sleep, they go to Sally, so my wife and I are never disturbed after we go to bed. Sometimes Sally and I go to games together, and my wife takes the kids because she's not into sports ball. No one in our house is dating anyone from outside it. These are committed relationships that are, to all intents and purposes, exclusive. None of us have ever mentioned seeing anyone else. Even if we were, which again, we're not, I don't see how that would make me responsible for him treating Mary terribly because he's jealous. Somehow he was apparently convinced that he and his beer gut would get all the girls, but no men would be interested in a charming, kind woman who keeps herself in reasonable shape and bakes the best cupcakes you will ever taste. I'd have dismissed this out of hand, but my aunt, his mother, and like 6 other family members agree that I'm the a-hole and have been insisting I should apologize to my idiot cousin and help him talk Mary into closing the relationship and staying with him. I like Mary. We've been friends for 20 years, and she's a good person. Also, friends with my wife and Sally, and a wonderful aunt to my kid. Given the choice between her and Dave, I'd keep Mary in the family along with her kids. Someone in my family is insane here. Is it me or them? Who's the a-hole? Dave sounds like a dingbat. I'm sorry. He saw that you had someone else in you guys' life that was around you and your wife, and then just assumed polyamory. Hey, my wife, we're gonna do that. That works for them, and I'm gonna get laid. And what, not me, only you? Now I'm mad. It's all your fault, poster. This is ridiculous. How are there other people in your family that are blaming you for this and going with Dave? Dave sounds like a mook. I don't like him. Oh my God. He just wanted to get laid with other women because he's bored with his wife or something. And he's just kind of a sleaze, but not sleazy enough to cheat. He wanted, cheating with permission kind of, but, had to also give his wife that permission and she got it. That's all that's happening here. And look, polyamory is great. This relationship structure where there is someone who's aromantic and asexual that's part of a family structure, I think that's great and healthy. I think that honestly, non-traditional family structures are a wonderful, wonderful thing. They don't work for everyone. It's really something that has to work for all of you, and everyone's going to be different. I don't know, but for someone else on the outside to just look at that and make some assumptions and do something drastic to their own relationship like that, and then blame you when it doesn't work out, is so profoundly idiotic that it makes me want to scream. I hope that Mary leaves Dave and gets with someone better and Dave can be alone and miserable himself because he sounds just like a pain. Or maybe I'm just tired after a long day of recording. I don't know. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.